Hello, everyone. Ciao. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining this Your Overseas Home webinar. Hopefully you can hear myself and see myself okay. Today we are talking all about Italy. So if you're looking to potentially purchase or invest over in Italy, you are in the right place. Well done. And in today's webinar, we're going to be looking at the legal process of how to purchase a property over in Italy, the pitfalls to look out for, and how to ensure that you are protected within this very important part of your journey overseas in Italy. We're also very luckily joined by Manlio from C Legal, who is a legal expert that we've been working with for a number of years. He's been great in helping countless numbers of our clients undertake similar journeys as yourself over in Italy. So Manlio, thank you very much again for joining us. Thank you for being here. And we look forward to putting you through the paces with some questions in this session. Yeah, so this session is kind of tailored to anyone that's looking to invest in property, whether that's holiday homes, property investments, or full relocations. And it's great to have you all here with us, whether you're listening on demand or live. And before we sort of jump into it, I'll pass over to Manlio to just do a quick introduction to himself. And also, Manlio, if you can just kind of introduce C Legal and how you could potentially help our listeners here today.
Thank you, Seb. Thank you for this kind introduction. And hello, everyone joining us this webinar today. My name is Manlio Gervasi. I'm senior partner at Legal and Tax. We are a boutique law firm of 10 lawyers with headquarters in Rome, also with other offices in Tuscany, Lucca, Puglia, Ostuni, and Sicily, Palermo, and Nodo, Syracuse. We assist international clients during the property purchase all over Italy. We assist also international clients in setting up a company in case they would like to buy an operating hotel or restoring a beautiful masseria in Puglia. So we set up a company. Also, we cover immigration aspects, also visa and Italian citizenship. We cover also the tax aspects of the property purchase or business setup, and we also assist clients in inheritance and wills, dealing with Italian assets or international assets spread in other countries. I'm assisting clients mainly in real estate, property purchase, and in business law. Well, I'm here to help answer all your questions that you may have. Happy to reply to all your questions.
Manlio, that's great. Thank you. Thank you again for being here. I know, as I said, we've been working with each other for a number of years now, and all the services that you mentioned there, are an integral part of the people's journeys over in Italy. So it's great to have you here with us again. What we'll do throughout this session for everyone listening in, so we've got Manlio for about half an hour. He's a very busy man, so we don't want to keep him for too much longer. We're going to do a sort of question and answer style session. So in the bottom right-hand side of your screen, there's a questions tab. So any questions you have about the legal process of buying in Italy, perhaps even visas or taxes, as Manlio mentioned, please feel free to put them into the questions tab, and then we'll go through them and hopefully answer as many of them as we can today. The ones that perhaps we don't get around to or we run out of time, we will pass them across to Manlio and his team at C Legal, who are also just as great as he is, who will be able to get in touch and find out a little bit more about your unique requirements and hopefully help you on your journeys over in Italy. So Manlio, what I'll do, I've got some questions here that we've actually had asked of us around the buying process and the legal process in Italy. I think a good place to start would be why it's important to use a lawyer in Italy and why it's important perhaps to use an independent third-party solicitor or legal expert. Do you mind just giving us some interest on why that's important to seek guidance for this part of the process in Italy?
Yes, what we essentially do is we represent the clients all over the process. In Italy, the real estate purchase process is quite different from the UK or from the US. What we assist the clients is throughout the process. So this means from the beginning of the process. Also, even before sign an offer through the estate agents. In Italy, for example, for this purchase process, the offer in Italy, if it is offer accepted, this has become a contract, a binding offer. With the situation that in case of payment of deposit, or in case of acceptance, the buyer cannot pull out in case of any of issue may arise after they can check with the notary or during the inspection of the house if something is wrong or some legal concern happens after this offer signed. It's difficult to pull out or request a deposit back. So what we suggest to our clients is to find someone who can represent the clients and review also the offer, including some contingency clause to carry out due diligence, legal due diligence and technical due diligence. Because at early stage, international buyers we see in our practice, they are not aware of the legal process. They don't know what the legal sign, what the responsibility they have when they sign a contract.
Sure. Okay, so that's interesting. I guess in the UK, and I know we've got listeners from across the world probably listening in here. You know, the process in the UK is you're not liable to actually purchase that property until you exchange and you pay that deposit. But what you're saying there in Italy is once you sign a document, you're legally bound to actually follow through that purchase. So it's important to seek guidance before signing anything over there in Italy. I know as well, Manlio, because we've spoken about this before. I know in Italy it's not a legal necessity or requirement to have an independent third-party solicitor.
No.
I understand there's a general view online in forums and stuff that the notary does part of that due diligence. Do you mind just kind of explaining the difference between what the notary does?
Correct. The role of the notary and the lawyer is completely different. The notary is a third party, represents the states. It has the ultimate role to register the contract in the land registry. The notary arrives at the end of the process, not the beginning. So at the beginning of the process, there is the estate agent and the seller and the buyer. So the negotiation is dealing with the seller, with the estate agent. It's also important that the due diligence is carried out at this moment, at the beginning of the stage of the process, and not at the end when the notary check at the end of the process the compliance or if the property has any legal formalities or constraints. The notary checks only this situation of the property, if there are any liens or any mortgage. What we do more than the notary checks. We have an enhanced due diligence. We do more than the notary checks. We verify the condominium regulation. We verify if the seller has paid all the taxes on the property. We verify all the legal checks, the formalities on the properties. We appoint and we instruct the surveyor in order to verify the cadastral compliance and therefore plan if it's in compliance with the building authorizations. We do more activities that the notary does. We represent on behalf of the clients throughout the process.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. I think that's so it's really. I wanted to ask you because it's a common misconception that the notary acts and does those checks on behalf of the buyer. Our listeners perhaps, but realistically, I know in Italy you've got some absolutely lovely properties. Some of them are very old and historical. And with those types of properties, there can be risks with buildings not perhaps being put through correctly. And then once you sign on that document, the buyers will be liable.
Also, the notary will collect declaration from the parties. The notary does not have any responsibilities on the declaration that the seller and the buyer provide to the notary at the notary deed. It's essentially the role of the notary is check only if at the moment of the notary deed, at the end of the process, not at the beginning when the buyer is obliged or to pay the deposit, the notary at the end of the process checks only if the property has liens or mortgage. And the negotiation with terms and conditions of the contracts is between the seller and the buyer. The notary does not do negotiation in terms of or terms and conditions. In fact, even Italians are now more and more represented by lawyers at the notarial deed.
Sure. Okay, that's interesting. But yeah, no, it is clear, and I think it's important to kind of just make it really clear for everyone listening in on what your role is, and your role there is to ultimately protect the interests of the party, throughout their journey. And yeah, it's a really important part of the journey, but also it's a different country, different laws, different languages. So, that's where you guys come in and help them. So that's clear. We've got a couple of questions, Manlio, and thank you everyone for the questions that are coming in. Jacek has asked a question around timeframes by the sounds of things. So looking at buying some farmland as an investment, that potentially he could build on in the future, and put into sort of a B&B. I know you mentioned perhaps setting up businesses earlier, Manlio. He's from the EU, but his wife is from outside of Europe. How long would that relocation process, do you think, take for him and his wife if he's from the EU, but she isn't? Is there a sort of a time frame of how long that sort of process takes?
It depends also if they are also married or not married. If they live together or not. We assume that they live together. They are a couple. The relocation is very simple. It takes 30 days, 1 month. It's important that they have at least a rental contract, or they have an ownership of the house in which they can request the residency to the town or the municipality.
Sure. Okay, thank you, Manlio.
Residency.
Yeah, Jesse, thanks for that. It sounds like you are married, so I think your wife has also got a golden ticket into living over in Italy. So I'm very jealous. Just while we're on the topics of timeframes, Manlio, as I know, case by case, property by property, it varies, but on an average basis, how long does the process normally take from putting down an offer on a property in Italy to then completing, getting the keys, and then being over there in Italy? How long does that process normally take?
If the process is very straightforward, we also have experience that we closed in 3 months, even if with international buyers, and complete the remote purchase process. In the way that the buyers that we represent, there is no need that they come to Italy in order to appear in front of the notary. We also represent in front of the notary with the power of attorney. So we also do the power of attorney for international formalization. If the process, if there are no problems or issues with the house, we are able to close in 3-4 months.
Well, okay, that's it's actually quite a quick turnaround, and I know it varies from case to case. You mentioned Manlio power of attorney. At what point would someone that's looking to buy property in Italy solicit yourself, perhaps another power of attorney? When would that come into the process?
We usually instruct the power of attorney after we complete the due diligence, because after the due diligence, we are aware of what the situation of the property is, if there are any liens, any issues, or if there are any issue, for example, for building authorization. We request that the seller will fix at his cost. But in the meantime, after the due diligence, if the seller is able to fix the issue in 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 1 month, in the meantime, we can instruct the power of attorney. That takes 2, 3, 4 weeks, depends on the location and country of the buyer. Okay,
that's good to know. And once, I know you mentioned it before, just to clarify, once the power of attorney has been completed and filed with perhaps yourself, Manlio, does that mean that they don't necessarily need to be in Italy at all to finalise?
Yeah, completely. They don't need to come to Italy to finalise the deal.
Okay, I know I would probably want to be there if it was me, because I love Italy. But anyway, it's a good option just in case. Just while we're on the topic as well, we've got another question, couple of questions, and I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly here. Yera has asked a question around the steps. So, do you mind sort of listing out a bit of a time frame on the steps? So, once an offer is made, what would be the next step? Would it be then to actually, let's say before an offer has been made, Manlio, when would you advise someone to get in touch with you, and what would be the next steps from that point onwards throughout the journey?
We suggest to be in touch with us prior to submit an offer.
Yeah.
Because we will prepare a purchase proposal. We don't use templates from the estate agent, which are we don't recommend, because the estate agent include condition that no due diligence, no contingency conditions.
Okay.
Also, the template from the estate agents request the payment at the moment of the acceptance of the offer, because by law, the estate agent can request the payment of his fees, mediation fees, at the moment of the acceptance of the offer. We negotiate, if we are appointed by the buyer, we negotiate terms and conditions with the seller, but we include contingency clause, and we also postpone the payment of the due diligence, of the deposit, after the due diligence, which is also important. So the first step is appoint a lawyer or us prior to submit the proposal, include the contingency clause, carry out due diligence, which takes at least 30 days, because we collect all the documentation from the municipalities, we collect all the information from the seller, all the title deeds from the sellers, we carry out all the reports, which takes 30 days. We send the report to the clients, we discuss the report, the situation of the property. If in case of positive outcome, we move forward with the next step with the power of attorney. And we prepare all the documentation for the closing deeds. Seems very straightforward. But could be in some cases it's not like it takes a little bit longer.
Yeah. I know. I know the process in the UK, and it sounds straightforward, but it's an absolute mess. And you got the process in Italy, and you say it like that, Manlio, and it sounds even more straightforward. So, if all things go through okay, and you do the due diligence, and it progresses, you've got a 3-month period, hopefully, when you can complete and get the keys. If the due diligence comes back and something comes up on that, with something with the property, you would then have a conversation. Do you then help in the negotiations with the vendors and the estate agent to then talk about offers and things like that?
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time. Of 90% of the cases, back and forth many times about the terms, condition, price, timing for the closing. Is a lot of activities.
Okay, yeah. I say it's interesting to kind of understand the role of what you do, and I know that you guide people throughout that process and you protect them, but also you are really heavily involved with making sure that if something does come up, they're aware of it, and then they can take counter action and perhaps reduce the cost of the property, or take it aside. So that's interesting to know. We've had a couple of questions.
Taking care of the legality of the process, taking care of the legality of the property is the responsibility that we also assume on behalf of our clients.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay, that's really useful. And I know there's been a couple of questions from the audience around the actual purchasing of a property, and is there any difference between? Well, actually, first of all, is it possible to get a mortgage in Italy? Is that something that people can do?
It's possible. It's not easy, but Italian banks consider to provide the loan if the purchase price is above 400,000 euros. Below, not considered to get any kind of mortgage or loan.
Okay. Yeah, I think we spoke about that last time as well. I know it is possible, but there are certain criteria that someone needs
Yes,
to.
criteria, because for the bank makes sense to get involved in this because it's an international transaction with documentation from the foreign documentation from the employers, the contracts, taking time. So also in terms of for the valuation from the bank.
Yeah, yeah, okay. And the reason why I asked that as well is we have a question from Tom, and Tom asked, are the procedures, as you mentioned there, about buying a property in Italy in regards to timeframes, the process, is it the same if someone's buying purely with cash, or is it can things be quicker if people are paying with cash? Does that speed things up at all?
Well, the clients that find the possibility to get a loan in Italy is very low. Mostly in our practice, what we see that there are a lot of cash buyers. They don't request a mortgage.
Okay. Yeah, I know. I think with most of the people that would be buying property, unless they match that criteria, it will be cash buyers. Yeah, I would suggest, Tom, maybe actually speaking to Manlio and the team just to understand how long it potentially could take you. Manlio, we've got a couple of questions around tax as well, and inheritance. So Pete had asked a few minutes ago around putting an Italian flat that he purchased into his son's name, who is also a dual Italian and US citizen. Is it better for taxes or just better for inheritance tax for him to be the named owner of that property at the time of hopefully the untimely passing? Do you know what would be best, or would it be better to kind of understand a bit more about the individual requirement?
Well, Italian succession fees are not, inheritance fees are not so high. It's only consideration of timing for the process for inheritance, which takes 1-2 months in order to carry out this kind of this process of inheritance process. Is a consideration of opportunity. It's a matter of opportunity to pass directly the name to the children, or I don't know what was the question exactly for the entitled name of the property.
Yeah, if the property was to be in Pete's son's name, and Pete unfortunately passed away, would the son then pay no inheritance tax because it's in his name for that property, as an example?
Also, we need to consider if the son is a minor or.
Sure.
We need to. There are different considerations.
Yeah. I think Pete, I know there's a couple of questions here as well around tax, and I don't want to go too much down the rabbit hole with Manlio on this webinar, because I know we've got quite a few other questions, but it sounds like you've got quite a few questions that are quite unique. So I would suggest having a conversation with Manlio and Stan Legal team to understand.
Additional consultation call free of charge in case they have further questions.
Yeah, definitely. I know a lot of our introductions to clients have taken you up on that consultation call, and it's really helped them understand the buying journey, but also understand their own plans and what is needed to do in that process. If you're listening, I would definitely take up Manlio on that free consultation call when you can. And I think at the end of the presentation, we'll have a QR code where you can link directly to Manlio and the team at Sea Legal. On regards to costs, Manlio, we've got a few questions around costs. What are the typical costs that are involved in regards to buying a property in Italy with taxes, notary fees, agency fees? What do those costs look like?
In general terms, I can say that they can consider taxation, estate agent fees, notary fees, even our fees. They can consider 10-15% above the purchase price.
Okay.
On the purchase price. But depends how much it will be also the purchase price. Of course. Depends.
Sure.
I speak very general.
Yeah. I think it's what we also tell tell our listeners is 10 to 15%, I think, for Italy to budget for that. And then once you have a conversation, you understand your unique requirements, how much you're buying for, you'll probably get a more clear picture of exactly how much things are going to cost you there. While we're on
the taxation change in terms if the seller is a company, is a developer, is a private seller, if the buyer is a private, would like to move the residency, the taxation change, a lot of consideration. How much will be the purchase price?
Yeah. I think again, just going back to it, I know everyone's got unique requirements and everyone's buying as well in different parts of Italy. With buying perhaps, let's say, in Puglia and then buying a property in Sicily, is there a difference between the buying process and also the costs involved? Is it all the same?
All over Italy is the same process.
Okay.
Same process, same taxation.
Okay, that's really clear. Thank you, Manlio. And I've got a question here about the preliminary contract in Italy. I think it was at the Compromesso. Yeah, forgive my Italian, Manlio. Is there anything that people should be aware of before signing that? I know we've already spoken about before signing anything. Speak to a registered, trusted, legal expert. Is there anything else people should be aware of before signing that at all? And is it in Italian, or could they potentially translate it and then just do it themselves? Would you recommend that?
All our documents and contracts are in Italian and in English.
Okay.
It is not possible that an English-speaking buyer sign an Italian contract, a contract in Italian language. We don't recommend because they be aware what they are signing. It's important. Also, the notary has the responsibility to appoint an interpreter at the closing deed. If the buyer is not represented by a lawyer or the representative. So it's important. In terms of compromesso, which kind is the question exactly?
I just wanted to know, it's actually a question we had emailed into us before today. Someone asked, is there anything that they should be aware about before signing the compromesso? Is there anything that you suggest doing before signing that compromesso, apart from obviously taking perhaps the illegal?
It depends on which stage they are just process. It's important compromesso at the preliminary contract because at this moment they pay deposit, but we don't know if they carry out any checks on the property. If we don't know, it's important because there is no the offer. Our purchase proposal is very thorough contracts offer, which we do not sign after the due diligence, after our checks. We don't sign preliminary contract because it's not needed. It's important to understand why they are going to sign preliminary contracts. If they already have an offer, they already had an offer accepted, it's important to know.
Sure. Okay, that's great, and thanks a lot for adding the clarity. I know we've got a couple of minutes left, Manlio. I just have one last question. I know there's a couple more in the chat, but we've got a lot of listeners today that may not be EU citizens. Maybe from across the world. The UK, America, Australia, Canada, wherever it may be. Are there any specific legal restrictions to a non-EU expat about buying in Italy? Is there anyone that can't buy in Italy effectively? Is there anything that people should think about if they aren't an EU citizen?
There is some restrictions. Depends on which country they live. For example, they are citizen. Because the international principle is a reciprocity principle, which is an international principle on international law, in which the country, Italy, for example, allow the same rights to the US citizen if an Italian citizen has the same rights in the US. For example, right now, for Canadian citizen, in Canada, there is a restriction to buy property for non-residents.
Okay.
Same restriction will apply automatically in Italy for Canadian. The Canadian cannot buy property in Italy if they are not residents.
Right. Okay.
Depends on the nationality of the buyer, the citizen.
Okay. Okay.
Case by-
Yeah. I say I've heard it varies, nationality to nationality. So it's a case by case basis, but there are some restrictions. But on the whole,
What I can say, all European countries, there is not this kind of check of international reciprocity. From UK is there is reciprocity condition allowed, approved. Even for the US, there are some restrictions with Australians, with from New Zealand. In this case, it's important to check. Even for Chinese, right now, of course, for Russians, it's important to check prior to make any kind of deposit or enter into negotiation with the counterpart.
Sure. Just Manlio, just while we're here, Helen's asked. So Helen's, I presume, a Canadian resident. Canadian, but a resident in the UK. Would that mean that she would be applying as a Canadian or as a UK resident? Do you know?
No, as I mentioned, this principle is based on the citizenship.
Sure. Okay.
Not on the residency.
Sure. Okay, that's brilliant. Manlio, I know we've gone slightly over time. Just really quickly, we've had a couple of questions about small pitfalls. Can you just give us, 2 or 3 pitfalls that you find people could potentially fall into when buying in Italy if they weren't to use a solicitor? Is there anything that stands out that you, from your experience, about what can go wrong if you don't use a solicitor for the buying process in Italy?
Yes. What we suggest, don't pay any deposit or don't pay any deposit to the estate agent, because the estate agent they are not regulated to provide any kind of escrow account service. The only professional to provide escrow account service for real estate acquisition is the notary. But even with the notary, it's important to have an agreement for how to regulate escrow account service. Because sometimes we see, unfortunately, that there are some issue with the notary. We have seen many situations also with the notary that is not neutral in some cases. The role of the notary is third parties by law, by practice.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's good to know. I just wanted to end on that point, just because I don't want to scare people off buying in Italy. Italy's a great country. I've visited yourself in Rome, Manlio, and I've been there on holiday many times. I can see why someone would like to invest in property there. It is extremely safe to do so, but you just need to make sure that you are protected, and you are protected by an Italian legal expert. And I hopefully, throughout this session, people understand what your role is and why it's important to seek that guidance, because you're talking about a substantial investment in a foreign country, and things. I don't want to say, I don't want to scare people off, but there is a risk involved. But Manlio, I know we've gone slightly over, and I know you've got to shoot off. But thank you, thank you for your time, and thank you for all the questions that have come through. There's a couple that we haven't managed to get round to, and there's a couple more that are a bit more unique as well, which we'll pass over to Manlio and Georgia and the rest of the team at C Legal to follow up with you. Please do take them up on the option of the free consultation call. I'm sure it will help you understand the buying journey and your unique requirements. Manlio, thanks to you again.
As always.
You've been great. I've learned a couple of new bits as well, so thanks again. Before we finish up, there should be a sort of Trustpilot link that pops up. If any of the listeners have found this useful, we really appreciate it if you give Manlio and myself, just a quick review and some feedback. It'd be really useful for us. And if there's anything your overseas home or Manlio can do in C Legal, please do get in touch. And we wish you all the best with your journeys over in Italy. Thanks, Manlio. I'll leave you to the rest of your evening.
Evening.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye. Ciao, ciao. Bye.
Bye-bye.